Education plays a very important role. Education is not something permanent, although it is sometimes a conservative system. It is quite dynamic. We teachers and students started to perceive everything in a new way. Indeed, those competencies that were mentioned are being implemented in our lives today. In the theory of generations, children born after the year 2000 are the Generation Z. This generation has the following values: informational content, patriotism, and protection of the environment. They are children of the network. In accordance with this, we must definitely change our approaches to the process of learning. For a long time, the reform of education in Ukraine was either postponed or cancelled. It is worth remembering that in 1999, officials tried to introduce a 12-year educational model. However, it was not possible to reform the educational process then, and in 2010, the Verkhovna Rada reinstated the previous educational model. Today, society is ready to implement the reform, seeing as the world is not the same and teachers should stay in step with time. Now, we don't have time or the opportunity to rethink or postpone reform in this sphere. And in fact, the implementation that has been carried out since 2016 upon the political initiative of the government is about creating a new Ukrainian school and conducting reform that is intended to be the fundamental reform of the entire educational system in Ukraine. The educational system should prepare school children to be ready to deal with conditions that are rapidly changing. Therefore, modernizing the context of education, the formation of competences, the adaptation of educational needs to the students' opportunities, accessibility, and inclusiveness are the key spheres in the reform of school education. If we talk about the quality of our national education, then I must admit that it is not uniform. That is, the quantitative indicators and achievements of participants in the educational process are completely different. The best results are obtained by graduates of urban schools, and the results of graduates of rural educational institutions are significantly worse. The task of a new Ukrainian school is to equalize the opportunities for quality education, regardless of where the student lives. Schools in rural areas should be responsible for solving this problem. These are also called hub schools, that is, the central schools. On the basis of such institutions, children from the nearest villages also study. They are transported to the new alma mater school by buses. The idea is not new. It has been practiced for decades, though it was only introduced in 2016. These are institutions that have a sufficient base, which are located in the center of certain territories. This means the crossroads of certain paths, where the access of school children from the surrounding territory can be organized. It is clear that they have reliable equipment, because the appropriate funds are allocated for the development of such institutions. Moreover, such institutions have the highest level of teaching staff, which is a very important factor in the level of education of students. At the beginning of 2019, there were 780 supported schools in Ukraine, which include 1,260 branches. We're talking about individual learning institutions without the status of a legal entity, which are part of supporting schools, but can be geographically separated. Reform of the educational system is being implemented at the level of decentralization and territorial administrative reform. An example of such a successful educational institution in the Kyiv Oblast is the Studenyky support school. At first, we were the Zhovtneva secondary school, but over time, when our Zhovtneva became Studenyky, we changed the name to the Studenyky Support Institution, which is an educational complex and a general education school of 1st to 3rd levels. Basically, it is a preschool learning institution. 206 children study in our institution. 105 children come from 5 localities. For example, Kozliv, Studenyky, Somkovo Dolina, Sosnivka, and the village of Peryaslavske. The Studenyky Support Institution has all the conditions for providing a high quality of education: professional personnel, modern physics, chemistry, computer classrooms, multimedia equipment, media, and even its own sports gym. Now the school is under the maintenance of the community. In addition to that, state educational subventions are also allocated for the development of the new Ukrainian school. The support institution is our pearl. It is truly the pride and joy of our community. The school children, their parents and teachers love love our school. Second graders of the Studenyky school study in an experimental class based on a totally new program. Children are taught to think creatively, analyze information, and work as a team. We have a completely different studying plan, which differs from those in a regular school. We have 7 hours of an integrated course called I Explore the World. We have an integrated course of the Ukrainian language, natural sciences, and labor training. In these lessons, we conduct experiments and work together in groups. In such classes, students engage in project activities, work hard, and take information from other sources. Now work at the school has become much more interesting, says Lyudmila, a teacher with 35 years of experience. After all, there are more opportunities for learning new programs and subjects. We have a multimedia board in the classroom, without which I simply cannot work at all. This makes the process go very smoothly, and it is very comfortable. Thanks to this program, I can design any document, use a camera, and have access to any material that I want to show the children. Physical exercises and charging are also very helpful. The teaching staff at the school is highly experienced. Among 29 teachers, 11 have the title of a senior teacher. This year, 4 young specialists came to teach at the Studenyky institution. I have been working here from September. I work with great pleasure. In general, the students here are smart and well-behaved. I heard about this school a long time ago, and then decided I would like to work at this school. Before the new year, I worked at 2 schools. I have less working hours here, and when I was offered more hours here, I gladly agreed to work only here. In July of last year, an inclusive resource center was opened on the basis of the Studenyky support school. The task of the institution is the provision of psychological, educational, correctional and developmental services to children with special educational needs from 2 to 18 years. The idea of creating such an institution was developed by the head of the community, Maria Lach. Creating opportunities for teaching children with educational needs and helping them to adapt to society is the main objective and key message of inclusive educational reform. In our institution, we carry out a comprehensive assessment of every child's development. Having the results of a comprehensive assessment, we inform about the services that a child can receive in our institution. It can be a service provided by a speech therapist, whether this service will be provided by a practical psychologist or a defectology teacher.
Які саме послуги? Чи це буде послуга надаватися вчителем-логопедом, чи це буде послуга надаватися практичним психологом, чи вчителем-дефектологом?
In Ukraine, STEM education is gaining popularity. This is a methodology that focuses on practical tasks or problems. Students learn to solve the problems posed to them by trial and error. The teacher serves as a regulator. The theory is explained after an independent fulfillment. Despite the fact that each classroom in Studenyky has its own STEM place, Tykha plans to create a laboratory and an educational center where children will have the opportunity to creatively develop and present their projects. Teachers always want something more so that their students can work creatively. We have another idea. On the basis of our support school, we're going to create an educational center. That is, it will be a lyceum and a preschool institution. Of course, it will be much more advanced and will give greater opportunities for the creative development of our students. The process of creating support schools in Ukraine continues. Parents, children, and society are beginning to understand that providing contemporary quality education in small rural school is currently unrealistic. After all, the material base of preschool institutions is too weak, and the myth that populists of various social levels used to say "no school, no village" has lost its relevance. Today, one needs to think outside the box. After all, a competence-based approach to learning and the ability to put knowledge into practice is the main challenge of educational reform in Ukraine.